Our project is called the European Climate Resilience Agency. The idea behind the project, working on the landscape, is also to question the bigger scale of the landscape, and in particular, in our case, it was the role of infrastructure. So how infrastructure as the ultimate collective action can generate collective action or collective uses. We're now in a situation where the climate will change, and it's no longer about how we can change it less, it's how we cope with what happens in the wake of this change. So the effects of climate change will happen. How can we deal with them? And Poland has this very interesting history of very autonomous people, individuals. And it's very legible in the landscape, which has a very small cutouts. Fields are tiny. People work in the fields behind their house. The scale of the territory is quite small. So there's this very strong belief in the individual autonomy. And on the other end of the scale, Poland has been colonized, occupied many times by many different powers throughout history. And so there's also this skepticism of power. And there's also this history, and this is quite dark, but also of using architecture and using infrastructure as almost as warfare. There's this example of these housing blocks close to a major, I think it's next to the airport in Warsaw, which were built in such a way that if the airport was blown up, the buildings would absorb the shockwave and protect the city. So we were very interested in these examples of how the big scale, how the upper scale can help to deal with these effects of climate change, which will need to be dealt with collectively. So showing also the extreme that this can imply. So not only we work, for example, with lots of different archetypes, of course dealing with rise of sea level, there's this dam that you can see on the model, which is quite huge, it's invasive, it takes up a lot of space, but we also worked with the overlay of water on the lands, the use of forestry to forest coverage in order to protect, to avoid heat waves, to manage water, to manage, just to give the landscape more resilience. So we worked with all kinds of different, it's almost geoengineering, so working with the land to change the climate, to change the world. Our idea is also to highlight the extreme to which we will have to go at some point in the future if we don't take action. So it's also a way of saying, this might be necessary at some point, let's try to avoid it together. But still, it's powerful to know that we have these political tools, these governments, these systems which exist, which that's what they are made for, to provide this resistance, to provide this resilience. So in a way we may be skeptical of them, and that is completely legitimate, but they are also tools that we can use and that we should, as citizens, grab a hold of.